tonight. More promises to ease national identity number registration process. National Information and Technology Development Agency to intervene as frustration grows across the country. No longer business as usual. President Buhari warns revenue-generating agencies, orders them to deliver on targets or risk sanctions as he signs the 2021 budget into law. In continuation of our sectoral review for 2020, tonight we shift our attention to the presidency. And New Year like no other as COVID-19 pandemic dampens celebrations around the world. Many countries cancel fireworks displays and public gatherings. Plus business, sports and international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's stock market ends 2020 positive, records 50.03% strong growth within the pandemic year.
On sports news tonight, the English Football Association bans Manchester United forward Edison Cavani for 3 matches for using a racial term in a social media post.
It's less than 2 hours to 2021. And it's an unusual new year rocked by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has hampered the usual festive mood at this time. Amid all of that, Nigerians are entering the new year with frustration experienced in their efforts to obtain their national identity registration number. There are more assurances of government's efforts to ease the process, though. The latest is coming from the National Information and Technology Development Agency, which is promising the building of what it terms an ecosystem to address the situation. The Director General of the agency, Mr. Inuwa Abdullahi, explains that his agency will collaborate with the National Identity Management Commission in this regard. He was addressing journalists in Dutse, the capital of Jigawa State, as more applicants stormed the offices of the NIMC in various states and the north to beat the deadline.
These are not prisoners. They are prospective enrollees for the national identity number in Niger State. Hundreds of applicants pressed against the NIMC gate desperately wait to get registered. The process is rowdy and the crowd not complying with the COVID-19 protocols.
182. That's my number today. And yesterday I was 57. Imagine today I'm coming here to be 182. And yesterday they gave us assurance that when we come back today, they'll use yesterday's list as today continuation. So that's what we expected for them to continue from where they stopped yesterday, but no.
The situation is the same in Katsina State as residents try to beat the deadline to link their SIMs with their national identity numbers. In Bauchi State, some visually impaired persons wait for several hours to get registered. Unfortunately, there appears to be no special consideration for this group.
Tun yanzu dukkan ma wannan jami'an wajen ma mun nemi kowa ko mutum da ya nuna mana mu ba ma gani ba a ma kusan tafiya da mu mun yi ma mu samu guda ɗaya security ma wanda zai kai mun shiga cikin ma an koro mu ne mu kaman ba ƴan ƙasa bane ba an zo an bar mu a waje ga muna tsaye har yanzu nan zuwa mun ya kai karfe 2 ya kai da 40 ma gashi a yanzu nan halin nan da muke ciki.
The surge in crowd at the headquarters of the National Identity Management Commission appears to have reduced following the introduction of the booking systems for enrollment. Nevertheless, the process is still slow.
There are still challenges because of the throughput of people and then the resources available to register the people. So that is an area where I think the management of NMIC can look into with the relevant agencies of government.
The National Information and Technology Development Agency is planning an intervention to ease the registration process.
The center can be used as a registration center. So the NIMC has been working on creating an ecosystem as well. The NIMC has registered many companies to provide these services. So the community can decide and use this center for that kind of registration.
Time is of the essence, and the large number of persons yet to be enrolled into the National Identity Number Scheme is an indication that the process is in need of an urgent tactic to reduce the numbers as soon as possible. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Back here in Lagos, getting the national identity number now appears to be less of a burden for residents as orderliness is gradually being restored at the National Identification Management Commission, NIMSI for short, Enrollment Center. This comes barely 24 hours after the commission announced the introduction of a booking system to make the registration process seamless, although the number of people turning out for the exercise remains high. A visit to the center also shows that the enforcement of COVID-19 safety protocols is in place, as only those who had their face masks on were allowed into the premises. However, social distancing is still observed in breached.
Day before yesterday, our Honorable Minister for Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, he gave the directive that all centers across the nation, we must ensure that there is a booking register. So that has helped us tremendously in Lagos. As you can see, right at the gate, the chaotic situation has reduced. Now applicants are getting aware that you need to book an appointment against a certain date, and the date of your appointment you just walk in and you'll be attended to. So, and again, we've enforced the use of mask right from the gate. Initially, we make sure that people are coming inside our premises are wearing the nose mask, but now from the gate, even if you have to come and make your booking at the gate, you must wear. So if you notice that today now a lot of applicants outside, there are not many people, because once you come, book your appointment, note the date of your appointment, and you come. So that has helped us, because of to comply with the safety guidelines a lot.
For Nigeria's presidency, 2020 was supposed to be the year of kept promises. Almost every developmental vision had 2020 as target, and it was going to be the year when the Buhari presidency would roll out the programs built to make the lives of Nigerians better, in line with his campaign promises. However, the year appears to be ending on a note of unrealized expectations, mostly caused by a pandemic that the presidency is still trying very hard to manage, and a polity facing many other challenges. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, has more.
The year 2020 started with promise. The country had already gone through 4 years of the Buhari change agenda and was now a year into what was termed the next level agenda. While his first term focused on security, anti-corruption fight and economic growth, his second term, which kicked off in 2019, promised to focus on 5 key areas: jobs, infrastructure, business development, human capital enhancement in education and healthcare, and political inclusion. The country was to be on a growth trajectory, and then the unexpected happened. The world was hit with a pandemic that brought world economies to their knees and exposed just how weak Nigeria's institutions are.
Hello, Nigerians.
President Muhammadu Buhari swung into action, ordering a complete lockdown save for essential services.
I am directing the cessation of all movements in Lagos and the FCT for an initial period of 14 days with effect from 11 p.m. on Monday, 30th March 2020.
The lockdown helped reduce the spread of the pandemic, but it was devastating to the economy. The budget was revised in July to 10.8 trillion naira, 71.5 billion naira more than was initially approved. The economy eventually plunged into a recession. The plan for jobs to engage 1 million graduates and scale up 10 million could not be achieved by the end of 2020. In terms of infrastructure, the second Niger Bridge reached 33% completion in 2020, as well as the $1.6 billion Lagos-Ibadan railway project. In business entrepreneurship development, the People Money Scheme, Trader Money, Market Money and Farmer Money schemes targeted 10 million Nigerians from 2.3 million in 2015. The government, under the Economic Sustainability Plan, implemented the Survival Fund, which has commenced disbursement to 500,000 beneficiaries. The Payroll Support Scheme, which has paid close to 350,000 beneficiaries, while 166,000 artisans have benefited from the Artisan and Transport Scheme. The promise of 35% of political appointments going to women was not kept. Of the president's 44-member cabinet, only 7 are women. 2020 saw the need for perhaps the largest call for police reform in the country following nationwide protests against extrajudicial killings and harassment by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS.
The disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reform in order to ensure that the primary duty of the police and other law enforcement agencies remains the protection of lives and livelihoods of our people.
Despite this announcement and attempts to meet the 5 for 5 demands of the protesters, the protests continued, particularly at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos.
This year, we're not falling for the same lies, okay?
The shootings in Lekki were condemned worldwide, and the president directed that panels of inquiry be set up across the country to investigate all cases of police brutality. President Muhammadu Buhari's war on corruption took a massive hit in 2020. Despite the president's anti-corruption stance, the head of the anti-corruption agency, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, was himself investigated for acts of corruption by a committee set up by the president.
Thank you very much.
Nigeria also managed to dip 2 places in the Transparency International Corruption Index, rating 146th out of 198. Security has remained a major challenge for the president, with a rise in kidnappings, banditry, and Boko Haram attacks. Most notable is the killing of at least 43 rice farmers in Borno State in November of 2020, and the kidnapping of over 300 boys from the government secondary school in Kankara, Katsina State. The boys were released 6 days later. The Buhari administration still has 2 years and 2 months to fulfill its promises, especially ensuring a better life for Nigerians, improving Nigeria's corruption perception, and keeping the country secure. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Kayla joins us now for more insights into the activities of the presidency this year. She's in our Abuja studio. Kayla, even though we spent the better part of the year talking about the pandemic from your perspective, how would you describe the executive arm in 2020? And what were the critical areas and happenstances that shaped it?
Nice to see you again, Amarachi. Well, 2020 in the presidency was a very difficult year. To deny the impact of COVID-19 on governance in Nigeria would be a very unfair statement. However, it is a very interesting dynamic that we see everyone blaming every failure on COVID-19. The truth is that the part of governance is to prepare for situations such as COVID-19. So we may be looking at a situation where we're looking at the government. Of course, they are not lying. Everything that was planned for 2020, a lot of it was not able to be accomplished as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the honest truth is that governance has to be better. Governance has to get to where, you prepare for emergencies such as pandemics and natural disasters and wars. These are things that governments should prepare for. And we saw the Buhari presidency in 2020 doing what it can to, handle the situation. It was more reactionary than proactive, to be honest. Some of the defining moments for 2020 in the Buhari administration was really, an exposure of how many of the institutions in Nigeria have not been catered to. This was the litmus test of Nigeria's institutions, and in many ways we failed. In some ways we performed well. There is the fact that the Buhari administration has been applauded for its reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic, swinging into action immediately, putting up lockdowns, coming up with an economic sustainability plan, a survival fund, things to cushion the effect of the pandemic. These are good things that have happened, but a lot more was expected from this government, and a lot more should be.
Indeed, Kayla, thanks for your analysis. We'll be talking some more about this a bit later, but thanks a lot, Kayla. We'll also be looking into your report. And in part two, after the break, there'll be more on our focus on the presidency. Tonight, we have a development consultant and a public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo, to take the discussion further. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. More promises to ease national identity number registration process. National Information and Technology Development Agency to intervene as frustration grows across the country. No longer business as usual, President Buhari warns revenue-generating agencies, orders them to deliver on targets or risk sanctions as he signs 2021 budget into law. In continuation of our sectoral review for 2020, tonight we shift our attention to the presidency. And the new year like no other as COVID-19 pandemic dampens celebrations around the world, many countries cancelling fireworks displays and public gatherings. We're staying with our review of 2020. Nigeria's presidency is in focus. Joining us now, live now from our Abuja studio to further look at how the presidency has fared in the outgoing year is development consultant and public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ojo.
Thank you very much, Amarachi. Happy New Year in advance.
Well, that's just a few hours away. Happy New Year to you is in order. It's been a difficult year, though, even for the most advanced countries. Here in Nigeria, how would you describe the role of the presidency in navigating through this pandemic?
Well, like the president will tell you, he's done his level best under the circumstance. Unfortunately, we were caught napping with the COVID-19. It was unprecedented. None of us, many of us, let me say, were not around when the last pandemic happened in 1918 to 1920. So we really didn't have a template to learn from. And so initially the presidency actually grappled with how to cope with how to engage and combat the ravaging COVID-19. You recall that you took a bit of time to impose travel ban and to set up the isolation centers, to have them well kitted. For many months, health workers were crying that they couldn't get personal protective equipment. They didn't have hazard allowance paid to them, or some of them were saying that the hazard allowance being paid them was too paltry and all of that. But eventually, by May, June, things improved in terms of engaging COVID-19. But as you said in your commentary earlier, it's an unusual year. Everything centered around COVID-19, and in between, we have a spike in insurgency and insecurity, which has also been highlighted with the peak of it last month or early this month, when we have the abduction of 344 Kankara secondary school abduction. Heartwarmingly, none of the boys were murdered, unlike what happened in Buniyadi in Yobe State in 2014, when we had about 59 young schoolboys slaughtered by Boko Haram. This time around, they were able to rescue the 344 of them that were abducted alive. But we have seen, just like we are having a spike in COVID-19, we are also having a spike in insecurity and insurgency. And that has also impacted negatively on food security situation. Like Kayla said in her remark, because of the issue around COVID-19 lockdown and insurgency and insecurity, farmers could no longer access their farms. Some of them have had to pay what's it called, pay a kind of levy to be able to access their farmlands. And this has impacted negatively on food production. If you take it away from that, the fact that the presidency also deemed it fit to reopen some of the partially locked borders is an heartwarming development, because while the presidency may tell you that since the closure of those borders in August, on August 20, 2019, that there has been an increased revenue accruing to the Nigerian Customs Service, as well as the farmers who are into poultry, who are into rice production and all of that. Unfortunately, part of the sticky moment for Nigeria this year, aside from insurgency and COVID-19, was the natural disaster where we are flooding, particularly in the Benue Trough, which washed away many farmlands. And this has also, in a sense, created challenge with food security in Nigeria.
Indeed, indeed. And it appears that, you rightly mentioned some of the other pandemics that ran side by side the health crisis experienced around the world. One of them, which you remember, and you haven't mentioned, is the End SARS protest and its aftermath. The question is what your assessment is of what the presidency did, with that protest and with handling the crisis.
For the End SARS protest, again, should I say it called the presidency napping? This was a protest that was not taken seriously when it initially started after the killing of a young chap in Delta State, I think Warri, Delta State, or somewhere in the Delta State. After the uprising, which largely went online on social media, where people were condemning police brutality and all of that. You now had a few young Nigerians, articulating and mobilizing Nigerian youths to engage in open street protest. This was also, to the best of my memory, coming on the heels of June 12, 1993 mass protest. This End SARS protest comes as the very close to what we experienced in 1993. Because in the 2-3 weeks that this End SARS protest took place, it shook the country to its foundation, so much so that the presidency was very quick to accede to the demands of these Nigerian youth, particularly as the protests went into the second week, where you now have blockade of roads across many of the states. So eventually the country recorded huge loss in trillions. Lagos alone recorded the burning of courthouses, burning of mass transit buses. In fact, warehouses were looted as many Nigerians were looking for the palliatives, the COVID-19 palliatives that were allegedly hoarded by some unscrupulous government officials. This was another scary moment for Nigeria, because people were not too sure how that End SARS protest was going to end. Here we have about 27 police officers murdered in cold blood. There were prisoners set free in Edo and Ondo State. Right. And the aftermath of that is what has also led to the spike in insecurity in the Edo-Ondo axis, where you now have abductions and kidnappings of travelers almost on a weekly basis.
So we're looking forward now, and we're counting down to the new year. It's less than 2 hours away from 2021. If you were to advise the presidency, what critical areas should the presidency address in 2021 that will especially impact on citizens? Very briefly, please.
First and foremost, let me congratulate the presidency on the feat of making Nigeria the some global economists will say Nigeria is the 25th biggest economy in the world, or 26th according to IMF. That's a record feat, because though we were actually aiming at being one of the 20 biggest economy in 2020. That was what Vision 2020 was all about. But if we come 25th or 26th, that wasn't a bad position. But again, human capital must come top. Whatever we want to do, we need to take our education sector very seriously. One of the areas the COVID-19 has impacted negatively is the education sector, where schools were on lockdown. Universities, many students have lost a session due to no fault of theirs. One, because of COVID-19. Two, because of ASUU strike. Actually, on December 23, ASUU has suspended strike. So we are hoping that in January, schools will resume. But before schools will resume, what the presidency needs to do is to ensure the safety and security of our students when they resume back to school. Safety and security in terms of COVID-19, safety and security in terms of physical security. Because there was a very ugly incident that happened about a couple of months back in ABU, Ahmadu Bello University's area, where a lecturer or one of the staff of the university was allegedly abducted by unknown gunmen with his wife and daughter. But eventually they were rescued. So we need to take education very seriously. We shouldn't have a situation where schools will be shut down for another session. But more importantly, the significance of the signing of 2021 budget today must not be lost. Implementation, full implementation of that 13.58 trillion budget must be ensured. Because what's the whole essence of having a budget that is just like a paper tiger? So I will enjoin the presidency to ensure the full implementation of the budget. But we cannot in isolation discuss presidency without discussing the subnational level. There must be proper coordination between and among the three tiers of government, the federal, state, and local. We must also ensure a very smooth, robust relationship among the three arms of government. Right. That is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. We are seeing the fruits of the collaboration and robust relationship between the executive and the legislative arm. In the passage of the budget, look at it, the budget was submitted on October 8th. It was passed before the end of December, and the president has assent to it. So right. This is the way to go. Robust relationship among the three tiers of government and among the three arms of government will ensure better standard of living for Nigeria in 2021.
Well, you said a lot tonight to give us a lot to think about. Development consultants and public affairs analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Thank you again for joining us on the News at 10 tonight. Hope to see more of you in the coming year.
The pleasure is mine. Thanks.
When the News at 10 returns, the Nigerian stock market ends 2020 positive, records 50.03% growth within the pandemic year. We'll have more in business news. Join us again. As happened earlier today, President Muhammadu Buhari issuing a warning against business as usual for revenue-generating agencies in 2021 as he signed the 2021 budget of 13.5 trillion naira to kickstart the fiscal year. According to the president, the budget signing is to ensure the actualization of the January to December budget calendar. Tagged the budget of economic recovery and resilience, President Buhari explains that the budget is critical for the legacy of his administration in ensuring security, economic growth, and implementation of health and emergency measures to counter the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy.
In designing the 2021 budget, we deliberately choose to pursue and expansionary fiscal policy. As you are all aware, our economy recently lapsed into its second recession in 4 years. I mentioned during the presentation of the 2021 appropriation bill that we intend to use the budget to accelerate our economic recovery process, promote social inclusion, and strengthen the resilience of the economy. All ministers are to ensure that their supervised ministries, departments, and agencies achieve the objectives set for their sectors. I am aware of the changes that the National Assembly has made to the 2021 executive budget proposals. We will examine these amendments, and where necessary, I will revert to the National Assembly with a request for amendment, environment, or other appropriate adjustments to ensure that the core objectives of the budget are accomplished.
In the meantime, the president will tomorrow address Nigerians in a nationwide broadcast to mark the new year. Channels Television will bring you that broadcast live. And after signing the budget, State House correspondents took the Senate President up on the use of over 3 trillion naira from the budget to service debts. His thoughts on more loan requests from the President also. Mr. Lawan explains that borrowing is a natural option when revenue is low.
Whatever request that will come to the National Assembly for borrowing, we must, as a National Assembly, ensure that such funds, when borrowed, will be applied on capital projects for development of the country. So I don't want to jump the gun, because the Minister of Finance will make the details available. We are yet to see what it is. But I want to assure you that once it is in the interest of the people of Nigeria, the National Assembly will work on that. If, however, we have issues, then we will say so, that we must apply such funds strictly on capital development of our country.
The rise of COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the huge challenges in the nation's health sector, with several plans put in by government to deal with the virus and other infectious diseases, as health authorities continue to seek ways of curtailing its spread. While Professor Oyewale Tomori, a professor of virology, insists Nigeria can do better in the fight against COVID-19, a top official with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chinwe Otru, believes the agency has done its best with the help of the state governments and the FCT authorities. Both guests were speaking on the channel's television program titled 2020 in Review, Year of the Pandemic.
NCDC was set up not to report cases. NCDC was set up to prevent cases. I think those are the issues I think we begin to look at what we're doing as a country. More cases, now yellow fever is all over the place. It's coming into so many other places. When people were saying this is the first time we're dealing with pandemics, that's not true. We had pandemics of yellow fever back in the 70s, in the 60s. I remember between 80 and 91, we had yellow fever all over this country. The laboratories that did that, this was done in Ibadan here. We didn't have to go to Dakar to confirm our things. Why are we moving backwards? These are things I think we should take the opportunity of this to look back on those areas. I like our colleagues, let's paint the positive side, but at the same time, let's be realistic that in 60 years, we are where we are because we have abandoned the things we should do. We have not sustained what we have. And I think we need to, we like handing to our government. The other day, I was at a meeting when one of the ministers got up and said, oh, COVID is killing everybody in Europe. It's not killing people in Nigeria. It knows what the government is doing. And I got up and said, yes, COVID is killing in Europe, but your deduction that is what we did right is wrong.
When we had the first case, it was just Infectious Disease Hospital, Yabalagos, that was ready to admit. And the patient that was, the case that was detected from Ogun had to be sent to Lagos for admission. But currently we have over 100 treatment centers across all the states of the Federation. We have also strengthened our infection prevention and control system. Currently, all the tertiary health institutions in the country have established infection prevention and control committees. This is what we have been trying to establish over time, and it has not been that easy. But this year we were able to get that done, and we're hoping that we'll scale it to the secondary health facilities and primary health care facilities as well.
To the judiciary now, hearing in the certificate forgery suit instituted against the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, by the All Progressives Congress was stalled today due to the sudden illness of Justice Ahmed Ramat Mohammed. The APC and one of its chieftains, Mr. Williams Edobo, had dragged Governor Obaseki, the People's Democratic Party, and the Independent National Electoral Commission to court seeking the disqualification of Mr. Obaseki in the September 19, 2020 governorship election over alleged certificate forgery and perjury. They specifically accused Mr. Obaseki of forging his Bachelor of Arts in Classical Studies degree he submitted to INEC. The judge had on Wednesday adjourned the hearing for the cross-examination of the fourth plaintiff's witness, Mr. Raphael Omuzulibo, a retired police officer who claims to be a forensic document examiner. The hearing, which was initially fixed for noon today, did not commence until about 2 p.m. While apologizing for the delay, Justice Mohammed explained that he had severe attack of malaria and as such would not be able to go through the day's proceedings. Following the agreement of parties in the suit, the judge then adjourned hearing until Monday, January 4th, 2021. Residents of Monkey Village in the Opebi axis of Lagos State have been rendered homeless following the demolition of the settlement by the Lagos State government. Operatives of the Lagos State Environmental Sanitation Corps and its task force carried out the demolition. The aggrieved residents say they were not given any notice by the state government before the exercise was carried out. Another demolition, this time in Kaduna State, as the government demolished a house that was allegedly planned to host a nude party. The demolition of the one-story building was supervised by officials of the State Urban Planning Development Agency, KASUPDA. According to the public relations officer of the agency, Nuhu Garba, the organizers of the aborted nude party have been arrested by security operatives. He explains that the demolition was in accordance with the laws guiding the agency and the power to demolish any building that contravenes the rights of occupancy. Well, today was the last business day of the year 2020. Let's go over to Teniola Shibawale for more on today.
Quite right, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's debt stock has risen to 32.223 trillion naira, or $84.574 billion in the third quarter of the year. And that's according to the latest data released by the Debt Management Office. According to the DMO, Nigeria's debt stock grew by 1.214 trillion naira between June to September the 30th, 2020. The debt stock comprises the domestic and external debt stocks of the federal government, the 36 state governments, and the Federal Capital Territory. The DMO public debt report shows that 37.82% represent external debts, while the balance of 62.18% is domestic. Now, the government of Rivers State has ordered the immediate reopening of Kidney Island in Port Harcourt for the operators. The decision was made following a meeting between the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, and the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Mr. Mele Kyari, while further discussing to resolve the underlying issues continue. Kidney Island, an operational base belonging to Shell Petroleum Development Company, was taken over by the Rivers State government on December the 23rd, following the purchase of the facility as ordered by a High Court in Port Harcourt in a case involving Shell and a host community in Rivers State. Now, the governor of Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has signed the 2021 appropriation bill of 1.164 trillion naira into law. Speaking at the signing of the budget at the Lagos House in Marina, Governor Sanwo-Olu explained that the budget has a capital to recurrent ratio of 60:40. He also affirmed optimism that the state is entering the new year with an already passed budget, which would help to speed up recovery from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the EndSARS protests. Now, after starting off 2020 at 26,867.79, the benchmark index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange ends 2020 higher by 1.92% to hit the 40,000 level at the close of today's trading session. The latest feat, which represents a 50.03% strong growth year to date, comes amid a mixture of negative market breadth and some profit taking, while the equity cap sustained its increase by an additional 396 billion naira to end at 21 trillion naira. Well, Chimeze Obi-Wagu tells us more.
Bravo to the bull as the all-share index ended the year above the 40,000 level. It's a year that the market defied the global trend with the COVID-19 pandemic and its disruptions. It's worth noting that the benchmark indicator has not had it this good in the last 5 years. Don't forget also that the market capitalization hit a landmark this year when it hit the 20 trillion naira mark for the first time ever. And this week, Bloomberg's tracking of stock market indices ranked Nigeria's equities market as the world's best performing stock market in 2020. Look at the closing figures today. 40,270.72, up almost 2%. For the week-to-date close, the index went up 3.79%. Today's gain is majorly attributed to MTN Nigeria and again BUA Cement, which supported the industrial goods sector. And back to this year, it's the first time the market has had up to 5 listed companies reaching a capitalization of more than 1 trillion naira each. We have Dangote Cement, MTN Nigeria, Airtel, BUA Cement and Nestle. However, we still have few companies having more dominance in the market, such that top 5 highly capitalized companies represent 70% of the market's total value. Despite the pandemic, it's been a very good year for investors on the domestic equities market. And the interesting thing is that the outlook seems very positive, especially in the first quarter of 2021, because of expectations of good financials of quoted companies and high dividend yield, and at a time when yield in the fixed income market remains unattractive. So, it's a good way to end the pandemic year. We look forward to a more profitable and a prosperous 2021. Happy New Year.
And that's business news this year till 2021. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Tenny. The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission has condemned the killing of a 27-year-old man, George Nkencho, a Nigerian in Ireland. The grievance was made known in a press statement by the Commission's chairman, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, who was called for a full, thorough and fair investigation into the killing. She's appealed to the Nigerian community in Ireland, which is enraged by Nkencho's murder, to be patient and allow the law to take its course. In the meantime, fears of the spread of the new coronavirus strain has dampened New Year celebrations across the world. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Restrictions are being placed on New Year festivities around the world as many countries struggle to curb new spikes in coronavirus cases. New Zealand was the first country in the world to celebrate the arrival of the new year, but fireworks displays and other public gatherings have been cancelled in many other places, from Sydney to New York. Festivities are being particularly muted in Europe amid fears over a new, more contagious strain of the disease, and France has mobilised 100,000 police to break up New Year's Eve parties and enforce a new nighttime curfew. More than 1.8 million people have died with the virus across the world, and more than 81 million cases have been reported so far. About 900 migrants from South Asia and other regions are struggling in bitter cold temperatures at a burnt-out camp in Bosnia-Herzegovina after being denied proper shelter. The migrants remain at Lipa, a camp gutted by fire last week in the country's northwest, amid a dispute over moving them to a military barracks. Videos showed them trekking through woods with their belongings after buses supposed to transfer them were blocked in the hope to reach Croatia. The European Union and aid agencies have warned of a humanitarian crisis as the migrants lack basic necessities. The death toll of yesterday's attack in the airport of Aden in Yemen has risen to at least 22, with more than 50 people wounded. There was at least one major explosion shortly after a plane carrying newly formed Yemeni government arrived from neighbouring Saudi Arabia. Agencies report at least 3 mortar shells exploded on the airstrip after the government plane had landed. Aid workers and officials were among the casualties, but the Prime Minister said he and his cabinet were fine. The Information Minister accused Houthi rebels of a cowardly terrorist attack. At least 2 people have died in Peru after protesters faced off with police in a push for a salary increase. According to local media, the tense scenes spilled over as police arrived at the protest, where demonstrators were blocking a major highway. Farm labourers from major agro-exporter companies are calling for more pay and better working conditions. Negotiations between the government and protest leaders have failed to reach a solution. It's been the last day for the UK in the European Union, with the end of the Brexit transition period coinciding with the end of 2020. The UK has put to an end their 48-year membership with the bloc, having joined in 1973. In the 2016 referendum, 52% of voters backed the country's exit from the EU. A commercial deal was reached on December the 24th.
And having taken back control of our money, our borders, our laws...
Prime Minister Boris Johnson told Parliament he hoped for a new relationship with the EU post-divorce, but not everyone is convinced, as French European Affairs ministers said Britain is punishing itself with Brexit. Ghana's main opposition candidate in the presidential election held on December the 7th has filed a petition at the Supreme Court seeking to annul the incumbent re-election.
My pledge throughout my time of service.
Former President John Mahama says he lost unfairly to President Nana Akufo-Addo, citing electoral irregularities, and arguing that both of them did not attain a clear majority. According to the Electoral Commission, Mr. Addo garnered 51.5% of the votes, while Mr. Mahama got 47.4%. Meanwhile, the ruling parties are also planning to challenge some parliamentary results after the final tally confirmed a hung parliament. Opposition parties in the Central African Republic have called for a rerun of last Sunday's election, saying it was marred by insecurity and fraud. 10 parties, known as the Democratic Opposition Coalition, have said only about a third of all voters were able to take part. The country is still extremely fragile as a result of the civil war that broke out after a coup in 2013, and militias still control about 2/3 of the country. In the days before the election, some of the militias launched an offensive and advanced towards the capital Bangui in what appeared to be an attempt to postpone the vote. Hong Kong's highest court has ruled in favour of prosecutors' request for leave to appeal against Jimmy Lai's already highly restrictive bail order, meaning he will be in jail until at least February. That's despite the 73-year-old not being accused of a violent crime or considered a flight risk. Mr. Lai, the founder of the Apple Daily newspaper, is accused of conspiring with foreign forces to endanger national security. He spent the last week under house arrest after securing bail, but prosecutors won their appeal to re-imprison the media mogul. And finally, the 7-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has been awarded a knighthood in a UK New Year's Honours List. The 35-year-old this year became the most successful Formula One driver of all time. The sport's only black driver, who grew up in social housing as the grandson of immigrants from the Caribbean, has also used his profile to campaign for diversity and speak out against racial injustice. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. The amateur golfer Tajuddin Ajayi has emerged the winner of the 59th First Bank Lagos Amateur Golf Championship held at the Ikoyi Club 1938 golf course. This year, owing to the COVID-19 pandemic, a limited number of golfers participated at the 56-hole golf tournament played over 3 days.
Do it again! Do it again! At last!
That is the final shot that handed Tajuddin Ajayi the victory at the 59th First Bank Amateur Golf Championship.
Ajayi! Back to back!
To round off the three-day golf event, First Bank is rewarding deserving winners in various categories at a gala night.
The 20-liter Hisense microwave oven. Up chairs, sir. Another round of applause, please.
And the high point of the night is the award for the winner of the 59th First Bank Amateur Golf Championship.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the champion of the 59th edition of the First Bank Lagos Amateur Open Championship, give it up for Tajuddin Ajayi. Won for himself a Hisense HDTV 43-inch television.
Secret to my success is I practice a lot. I practice a lot. Every morning I came to the club at the range. I go to my putting range. I chip, I putt, like 1 hour, 2 hours in the putting range. I hit like 500 balls a day.
We love golf. We love golf players. We love the game. And this shows our real love that in spite of COVID-19, we found way of ensuring that the tradition is not broken.
The first Amateur Golf Championship has been held uninterruptedly for 59 years, making it one of the longest-running international amateur events in the country.
And that's a wrap on Sports News. It's back to Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. We're less than an hour away from the new year. Difficult year it has been. Celebrations muted across the world for 2021. Here in Nigeria, though, the National Information and Technology Development Agency has promised to intervene to resolve the frustration being faced by Nigerians in their bid to obtain the national identity number. And that's the news at 10 tonight, our very last for 2020. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Stay safe and I'll see you in the new year.